Good morning. Welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. This is BRN AM for Wednesday, June 12th, 2024. And our top story today, implementing AI in the retirement industry. And joining me now to discuss this and a lot more, Judy Nelson is the Chief Operating Officer for SS&C Technologies Retirement Plan Services, and Brian Halpin is the Senior Vice President at SS&C Blue Prism. Judy, Brian, so great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us on the program this morning.
No, great to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you. And we're going to be talking about artificial intelligence, or AI, as many of us know it as. Brian, I want to start with you and then get Judy to kind of weigh in. But I'm going to start with you, Brian. How do you define artificial intelligence? Because it can mean a lot of different things to a lot of people.
Yeah, sure. There's a lot of different ways of looking at it. From our perspective, and when you look at operational work, we're really talking about using technology to replicate cognitive tasks that people are doing. So we've been in the business of automation for the last 10 to 15 years, and a lot of the tasks that we automate are, repetitive, rules-based tasks. And where we've layered in AI on top of that now is really about the cognitive tasks, making decisions, judgment calls, things that might previously been thought of things you can't automate because it requires human judgment. We're really using technology, using data to help with those types of activities now. That just means we can automate a lot more activity in our business.
Yeah, and Judy, I want to get you to weigh in, because it's a way to automate, but it also a way is to make things a lot more efficient and hence reduce the costs associated with administration, record keeping, et cetera.
Yeah, in the record keeping business for the retirement services team, there's a lot of repetitive tasks that go on. And when you think about, as you begin the relationship with a client, it's that onboarding and it's adding in all the plans and all of the plan rules and taking into consideration all of the different facets of the business. It's taking something from a piece of paper or taking something from a form and adding that or loading that into the technology that's going to drive the outcomes for the business. So we really are taking a look at all of the functions that we perform in the business and saying, what are those things that are repetitive in nature? What are those tasks that we can look at automating something from point A to point B? And then really looking at those things that fall out of that type of process. And those are the things that we want to focus our talent and our resources and our people on, right? Because that's really where the value add comes in. That's where we're able to be consultative to our clients. That's where we're able to be consultative to our participants that we're servicing, and also sponsors, TPAs, advisors, and all of the other contingents that we support. So we've really been very focused on identifying all of those functions that we do that are repetitive in nature and looking at how do we deploy technology to help to facilitate all of that.
And Brian, if you pull back, I know Judy mentioned the retirement industry. We're going to talk more about that in a few minutes. But when you look around the other sectors of the economy, how is artificial intelligence being deployed today? You talked about some of the rules-based repetitive tasks, but what segments of the economy is it finding itself, is artificial intelligence being used?
Oh yeah, look, it's everywhere in every facet of every business right now. But there's a couple of different things that certainly in the financial services industry, if I just take that from our perspective, the broad financial services industry, we've been using AI models, machine learning in particular, over the last 10 years in areas where we're trying to find a more effective way of getting answers, or making decisions. So things like anti-money laundering, compliance-related activities, where you're really dealing with, large quantities of data, and you're trying to identify patterns, and you're trying to make decisions. And in the past, the decisions were made by lots of people looking at screens and comparing data and trying to make a judgment call on it. Whereas there's a much more efficient way of doing that by using AI models to do that. Where I think it's quite interesting, in the last probably 12 months, large language models and Gen AI have come to the fore in the consumer consciousness. And what we're finding it, like Gen AI in particular, is really useful for is around documentation, document understanding. So if you think about, just to give you a very simple example, every industry, every business you know of deals in documents of some form, whether they're digitized or unstructured or forms or PDFs or whatever. And in the past, we used to use, like, or we still do use a lot of OCR technologies to try and extract data from that and then sort of use it downstream in rules-based activities. But actually, if you think about it, in general, when you're looking at a document and we have a person looking at a document, we're trying to get an answer out of that document. We're trying to say, is this certificate valid? Does this form of identity confirm the individual? You know, so actually, I don't care about 90% of the content of the document. I care about the analysis of the answer that I need to do by looking at the document. So we're finding Gen AI in particular is really good at that, generating an answer based on a full document that it gets. So there are just two examples. I mean, you got large scale data problems, and you're identifying patterns and so on, and then you've got this kind of particular challenge around documents. But every aspect of our business, where you start to look at it, is where in the past you felt you needed lots of people to make those decisions and move it forward, and now there's the technology is advancing all the time, yeah, just constantly seeing new use cases appear.
Judy, it always begs the question whenever someone talks about, when we're talking about artificial intelligence and using it to do repetitive tasks, rules-based types of tasks, the first thing you're going to get from an employee is, should I be worried about losing my job? And I can understand the fear. And by the way, I think a lot of that fear is cultivated in the in the news articles, in the media. It just sells clicks. It gets people all ginned up and worried. But to you, should employees be worried about losing their job?
Absolutely not, right? What we're giving our employees is a more efficient way to work. And I think that's a really important way that we need to be thinking about the business. So when we think about how we've deployed it in my particular sphere within SS&C, what we've done in our area of work in the last year, we've rolled out approximately 65 digital workers. Our goal and objective is to double that this year. And we have a whole list of initiatives and processes that we've identified that are prime for really looking at pieces and parts to be, ingested by a digital worker. Our employees have had a lot of fun with it. We've named our digital workers. We even talk about, well, the digital workers might be, a little slow today. We need to regen them or restart them. So they've had a lot of fun with it, in addition to really being proactive and identifying things that are repetitive in nature, that quite frankly are difficult tasks, because you have to be very, very focused on quality. Like if you transpose a number, or if there are things that you don't necessarily put in the right spot, or there's different problems that are associated with it. So what our employees are really able to do is allow the digital worker to ingest those items into the system, and then they're really looking at those things that fall out, and that's a really value add, right? Those are value add activities that allow them to grow and stretch and mature in their roles than some of these repetitive tasks that there's a much better way to, ingest them into our system. One of the areas that we've very heavily digitized is payroll. Right? So payroll in the retirement industry starts the whole process, right? That's how you're getting the money in. That's how you're then investing those assets into the retirement plans. So we're able to use a digital worker to take those files that are coming in from our clients and match those off against rosters that exist. So instead of our employees looking at taking a payroll file and putting it into the system, it's automatically ingested. So then they're just dealing with the exceptions that fall out of it. Again, much more value added activity than just the repetitive task that they would end up doing day in and day out.
Well,
Can I just
go ahead,
sorry,
Brian.
Jeffrey. Yeah, I was just going to add, it's always an interesting question, I mean, and I think in terms of people's jobs, I mean, I think if you look back in history, I mean, I just go back through my period of career, every new technology that comes forward, people are like, oh, it's going to change, it's going to take my jobs away. In fact, it does the opposite. It creates new jobs. And the analogy I always use in this example is if I take something like marketing and I go back maybe 20 years or 30 years and it was primarily print-based, probably not even 20 years, primarily print-based, and it's now almost entirely a digital business. Has the number of people involved in marketing reduced or increased? Probably there's been an explosion in marketing activity, but it's all digital media based activity. So what that means, I think, though, interestingly for people is if you're in the world of marketing today and you don't understand digital marketing, you're probably not in business. And I think that's the change that you see happening in other parts of the industry. So if you're in operations or you're in accounting or whatever, and you don't know how to use technology, digital workers, automation, AI to get your work done, you become less relevant. So, the other way around, I think, to think about it is people who know how to use AI will probably get ahead of people that don't. And then that's the critical change that you see happening. And it's one of the things that we're trying to do is get more and more people within our organization to understand AI, to know how to leverage it, to know when to use it, to know how to access it, etc.
And
Well,
if I could just kind of add one more piece to that, we're changing the way people are working. We're giving them new skill sets, and we're making their jobs more exciting. And I think that the organization has embraced it, and they've been really excited to, understand how it works and how it can be applied to what they're doing day in and day out.
well said. And Judy, Brian, I need to take a very quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk more about how artificial intelligence is being applied to retirement plan operations. You're going to want to stay tuned right here on BRN AM. Now is your opportunity to co-create content around any topic on the First Lifestyle and Wellness Network. Reach a global audience through our platform and co-own exclusive branded content. All of our programs are available on demand and also as audio-only podcasts, so you can take us on the go. Broadcast Retirement Network, available anytime, anywhere, and on any device. Welcome back. We're joined this morning by Judy Nelson of SS&C Technologies Retirement Plan Services and Brian Halpin of SS&C Technologies Blue Prism. Brian, Judy, thanks so much for staying with us this morning.
Right.
Happy to be here.
And I just want to say I'm the real Jeff Snyder. I'm not an avatar. I'm not a digital worker yet. I'm sure if our staff could figure out how to remove me, that might be something they would do. I'm just kidding. Judy, just real quick before we get into where AI is being deployed, you mentioned naming the digital workers. Any names you can share? I mean, they just like regular names like Sally, Judy, Brian, or do you have like cool names?
We have cool names. So one of our digital workers is Robot Downey Jr. The teams have gotten quite creative, and we've had a couple of internal competitions around naming them. And I've even got my peer group involved in testing their creativity and coming up with some names as well. I think it makes it a lot, more fun for folks and helps to get everybody involved in the activity of deploying digital workers.
Yeah, I like that. Robot Downey Jr. Very, very interesting.
There you go.
Across our business, we've got everything from like Toy Story characters, Harry Potter characters, etc. Yeah, so it does personify it a bit for people, and it just helps them sort of think about it as part of their organization. So it's great.
It gives you a lot of insight into what people are into as well.
Yeah, absolutely. If I'm a big Star Wars guy, and a big Deadhead, so if I were naming digital workers, it has something to do with some of those categories. Judy, I want to follow up, and I want to talk about the deployment of AI further in retirement operations. Repetitive tasks. One thing that I remember, and I'm a recovering record keeper, and one thing that I remember as a big error rate was the trade date. So back when we did batch processing and we were coding in transactions, we'd have to put the trade date. And invariably, when you switch from the old year to the new year, December 31st and January 1st, or the first business day in January, you would invariably have people that put in the wrong date. That sounds to me like an opportunity for Robot Downey Jr. and I'm assuming to him, his peers, to pick up on and eliminate what would be costly trading errors.
Yeah, I would say to you that in our business, there's a lot of, even though we're in 2024, there's still a lot of paper, there's still a lot of forms, there's still a lot of activities that, are occurring as a result of, it's starting at a sponsor, right? These could be Joe's Pizza Shop, these could be, a variety of different sources. So what we really look at are, how do we get those paper files ingested into our system so we don't have to have a physical human being sitting there typing them in. And so we've really looked across the organization around some of those key things like, loan forms that people are sending in. I mentioned previously payroll was a big opportunity for us to digitize, auto match, pairing off, looking at rosters, getting all of that into our system. We're also looking at plan rules, right? Plan rules documents are, very lengthy, and they all pretty much contain key variables to what Brian was describing before. So it's how do you search out the information that you're looking for and automatically ingest that information into the system so that you don't have to have a physical human doing that, that work. We do avoid a lot of errors. We enhance our quality as a result of it. And then the one thing that I really, want to touch on again is as a result of taking a lot of these repetitive things that folks are doing on a day in and day out basis, we've been able to enrich their roles. We've been able to teach folks new skills. And we've been able to give them new tools to be able to do their job. And that then also translates to our clients, right? So we're able to really help our clients be more proactive, changing just, processing data and information to giving them insights into their business so they can further understand those things that they need to do or could enhance or could drive outcomes that they're looking to drive relative to making their employees ready for retirement. So it's really, I think, helped us dramatically. And as we look at, those other types of functions that are, there's an opportunity for automation, we're really looking at, how do we do reconciliation functions? How do we do more processing functions? How do we even do service functions? Things like transcribing a phone call, after call work is another project that we're tackling right now as well, to really allow us to automate a lot of that so that when an employee is looking at something, they're really able to provide the value add that our clients are looking for from us.
Brian, I want to, I think Judy brought up she brought up the phone call. And I want to ask you just in general, how AI can be deployed, forgetting that just the retirement industry. We have a lot of phone calls, by the way, in the retirement industry. That's a cost, but how can AI be, we've heard about chatbots. How can it be deployed in a call center, forgetting retirement, any call center, manufacturing call center, or just any type of service center?
Yeah, lots and lots of examples. So, I'll just, there's a couple of categories, if you like, that I'll talk about. So one is clearly around reducing calls in the first place, right? Or deflecting calls. And what I mean by that is really trying to understand through other means what it is, even proactively, what the issue might be for the customer, and actually almost pre-solving it or solving it in a more digital way. So when you talk about chatbots, for example, a lot of us are very familiar with fairly staged sort of chatbots. You press one, you do this, move here, do that. You put in and they tend to be quite unintelligent in that respect. But what AI in particular is allowing us to do is create much more intelligent chatbot experiences. So if you come onto a chatbot and you say, here's what the issue is, that the AI is not only able to really understand what your issue is, but also access 20 different downstream systems and actually get real data out of it and be able to solve the problem for you there and then. So it's using things like chatbot or other digital interfaces to remove the need for calls in the first place. So that's one sort of category. I think the other one, which is an interesting topic that Judy just mentioned, is around call transcripts, right? So one of the things so a lot of the, particularly the new kind of LLM type technology and AI technology is really good at creating transcripts from voice. If you have a transcript from voice, you can do things like ascertain sort of intent, right? So is this a complaint call? Is this a a happy customer? Is this a customer that has some difficulties? And then so you're able to really, rather than just say random sampling calls or whatever, or trying to log all of that data, through that, the use of the transcripts and then applying sort of natural language processing on it so you can determine intent. You can then highlight either sections of a call or particular calls that need further addressing by an individual when a response is needed or an action is required. So really just allowing us to move away from a model of where you needed people listening to these calls or maybe random sampling them, into truly sort of looking at every single call that's there and actually determining, better action and more supportive action for the customer. So yeah, lots of different examples right across the contact center sort of space.
Well,
And
this is
also
certainly
the sentiment, right? Capturing the sentiment, right? So you can better understand, how is a caller feeling about the interaction, and is there opportunity for either coaching or training or, a plaudit note because it was a job well done.
Yeah.
and
exactly.
yeah, all that is important. That customer satisfaction ultimately translates into whether or not, as a retirement plan provider, you're actually going to get additional business, because people look at that, they look at those scores, and they say, I want to be with that service provider, or I don't want to be with that service provider. Judy, Brian, it's such a fascinating topic. Really appreciate you joining us this morning, and we look forward to having you back on the program again very soon.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too. Thank you. It's great.
And that wraps up this episode of BRN AM. Have a topic of interest? Someone you think we should talk to? Drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the latest curated news in lifestyle, wellness, finance, tech, so much more, and all in one place, check out today's edition of our daily newsletter, The Morning Pulse. Want to search our archives, check out our latest content? Then visit our website. We're back again tomorrow with another edition of BRN AM. We'll have a very special program with a very special guest, and of course, another important topic. Until then, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving. Don't forget, roll with the changes. Now is your opportunity to co-create content around any topic on the First Lifestyle and Wellness Network. Reach a global audience through our platform and co-own exclusive branded content. All of our programs are available on demand and also as audio-only podcasts, so you can take us on the go. Broadcast Retirement Network, available anytime, anywhere, and on any device.